Welcome back to Florida Realtors Live. I'm your host, Tracy Velt. I'm a contributing editor with Florida Realtor Magazine and host of Housing Wire's Real Trending podcast. On the stage with me right now is Trey Goldman. He is the Senior Vice President of Public Policy at Florida Realtors, and we're going to talk all things legislative session. Welcome, Trey.
Hey, Tracy, how are you?
I'm doing great. So we had some very big wins. And I want to talk, just give me a brief overview of some of the biggest ones, but then I think the business rent tax is probably the biggest.
Yep.
So let's go into some of them.
Okay, so let's start with that one. That is by far the biggest, and you called it the business rent tax. Mm-hmm. It is really the sales tax on commercial leases. Yeah. But when you are selling this to the legislature, you need to simplify, right? So we came up with business rent taxes, BRT. This has been a 10-year odyssey. We started a long time ago. The state sales tax is at 6%. It was first reduced 0.2%. Yeah. Right? And so some years it wasn't, sometimes it was. It worked itself down. It got down to 2% last year, right? Mm-hmm. So we're at 2%, and then there's a local option. So this year, the legislative session was really kind of rocky. I mean, from the get-go, we have committee meetings before session even starts, and there was 3 different special sessions, and we had a week in Tallahassee lost to snow, if you can imagine that.
I can't believe it.
Right? My street looked like Vermont.
Yeah.
Right? It was just,
That's
it was wonderful.
Crazy. Yeah.
But, you know, for the process, it kind of backlogged things, and they really never caught up. So going forward, you know, we had a regular session, and the legislature couldn't quite bring it in for a landing. It was extended another, ultimately, 45 days. Yeah. Well, I think the Florida Realtors were the big benefactors of that, because the one thing the legislature knew and agreed on was that they wanted to do a tax reduction, so they did it on business rent taxes. They didn't just reduce it a point, they repealed it.
That's great. Right.
So there is no more business rent tax, and they extended that also to the local option, right? So now counties can't have a business rent tax either. Mm. So the fiscal on that is about $900 million just on the 2%, right? So this is the last 2% that started at 6%. So it's pretty remarkable. We're probably looking at, you know, overall $2.5 billion. Yeah. And that's annually. Yeah. Right. So if tenants aren't paying this, right, think of what they can do for their businesses. Yeah. Right. And so I think it's just a huge win, and you know, it's always good to deliver something for the commercial brokers, because we're generally, you know, a residential real estate organization. Right. But we have appraisers and commercial brokers, and so I think they were the big winners this year, not just within our organization, but I think across many stakeholders in Tallahassee. So
that's amazing.
Tremendous. Yeah.
So what is this year's legislative outcomes? How are they directly expanding housing affordability and access to homeownership for Floridians?
So, you know, there are a lot of pressure points today in buying a home and staying in your home, right? Even if you're not going, like these things are catching up. So it's kind of challenging. And then there's also a sense that some people with a lower interest rate may not be willing to move to upsize or downsize, right? So you have these pressure points, like first, you know, so many people moved to Florida, they drove the home prices up. Mm-hmm. You have interest rates, which, I mean, think about interest rates prior to COVID and now today. Right. You have property insurance rates that are expensive. And then because the sale triggers reassessment, you have property taxes going up as well. So all of these pressure points, one of the things the legislature did, which they started in 2022, is a Hometown Heroes housing program, right? And that's a 0% loans for closing costs and down payment assistance, right? Okay. And it's designed to be evergreen, but it's not there yet. So the legislature has to annually fund it. Right. And so we're at north of $300 million since 2022, which was year one, right? Yep. But this year they allocated another $50 million. And, you know, it was initially designed for just first responders, right? And then it expanded to all occupations And now it's back down to first responders.
Okay.
So, it's a bit in flux, but it's an amazing program. It's open now. And, my daughter's 26. She bought a home not long ago, a couple of years in Pensacola, God bless her. She was not able to use this, but I know so many people like her are able to. And, if you can just get your foot in the door, right, and then you can start building up that equity. So I think this is just tremendous, and it's very helpful for getting people in your first home. And if you cannot buy your first home, guess what? You can't buy your second home.
Yep, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah. And so what will, with the there's new resiliency investments were secured in 2025, and how will they influence property markets, insurability, and long-term growth?
So that's a really interesting question because, with property and separately, property insurance, the market in 21 essentially capitulated, right? And we had a special session in 2022 to bring back the property insurance market. Now, what we're trying to do is make Florida attractive to private insurance capital.
Right.
So this week, we just got our 15th new property insurance company.
Yeah.
Okay, and the same thing is going on here with resilience. Resilience. And so this is the My Safe Florida Home program, right? This year, there's $280 million allocated. We're over $600 million to date when this was initiated in 2022. This is a grant, 2-for-1 grant program to allow homeowners to harden their homes, right, to make them more resilient. So if you put up, you can essentially outsource, 2/3 of the cost of making your home more resilient. And if you think about, Hurricane Andrew led to some building code changes, and then later in 2008, more additional building code changes. But Florida has, I think there's probably 6 million homesteads today, and they're not all new, right? So we have to make our existing housing stock more resilient because that's the next evolution in property insurance and safety, like if you can shelter in place and you don't have to leave during a storm. All of these things are working. And so this program is it's for single-family residential homes and townhomes that are an insured value, so not necessarily the property value, but the insured value of $700,000 or less. And I think this is wonderful. I wish there were buckets more money, because my home, I live in a 1954 home. Yeah. It's been, updated a bit here and there, but I could use some of that resiliency money.
Yeah, we're in the market for new windows on our home, so we don't even have double paned at this point. So.
Right. Oh, God. Yeah, you are. Better catch up. I hope you're not on the coast.
No, we are not. We're not. But yeah.
Yeah. So it's good. I think it's a great program.
Yeah.
We have a tremendous amount of legislative buy-in. It's sort of prioritized by income, which I think is important. Yeah. But overall, if you just think about in a big picture, at 40,000 feet, Florida's a sandbar, right? You can fly across it pretty quickly, and a Cat 4 storm can run across it pretty quickly too. Right. Ian came in Fort Myers. It left in Volusia County. Yep. It left with 26 inches of rain. Yeah. Right. So it's paradise, but there's a cost, and we got to be careful. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So what progress have we made on water quality, wastewater, and infrastructure improvements? Okay, so that's a good question. That's high level. Here's what's going on. We depending on where you're standing in Florida, if you say water, it means something very different. Yep. Like, are you talking coastal, inland, lakes, streams, surface, underground, king tides? There's so many different things. And Everglades, Indian River Lagoon. Yep. So what the legislature's done, and they've really stepped up their game probably the last 7 years in terms of funding. And this year, the legislature funded $1.5 billion. And, I can't point to a street address or a zip code. Yeah. But, and sometimes it's hard to even see because some of it is underground infrastructure. Right. Right. But the legislature has put this money to use that at a local level, at a county level, at a state level. They're doing tremendous things for the red tide, the Everglades, the Indian River estuary, all of these things which make our state wonderful, right? No one's coming here to climb the mountain, right? They're all going to want to be on or near the water.
Absolutely.
So all of this makes a tremendous difference. And, we can't necessarily take credit for this, but, realtors, we don't sell homes, we sell communities.
Right.
Right. And if you have water-related issues, you are going to have a hard time. Like all of us. And it's not a place we want to live in. Water is a resource, and we need to protect it. And the legislature's really done a tremendous job recently about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's talk about strengthening private property rights and fair housing protections. What are we looking at there?
If you remember last year, the legislature passed a residential squatter bill. That's how we talk about it, right?
Yes.
So, and it allows property owners to get squatters off of their property really quickly. They've kind of flipped the script, and so you can get a squatter off your property. And I personally don't know of something where I've not been involved in something like that. But when I give legislative updates around the state of Florida, I say that, and everybody goes crazy.
Yeah.
They all applaud, and we see those stories, and whether you're in someone's home or business or Airbnb, you have these squatters, and it makes the headlines, and it's tremendous. And so that was last year. The legislature passed legislation for residential squatters. Okay, they came back this year and did the same thing for commercial squatters.
Okay.
And also for public lodging, which you think of, this hotel.
Yeah.
But public lodging also includes Airbnbs. Right, and we've heard those stories where you move into an Airbnb, like not you, Tracy.
Right.
Maybe they move into your Airbnb,
right.
and then they decide they're not leaving.
Yeah.
And then law enforcement shows up and they say, well, I got a lease.
Yeah.
Right, and all of a sudden we're stuck.
Yeah.
Right, and so we have to go off to court.
Yeah.
And so the legislature's really just flipped this formula.
Yeah.
And I think that is a tremendous win for property rights for our members as well as their clients and customers.
Yeah, it does defy logic when somebody moves into your house that you can't get them out.
Yes.
So it is good. And I'm going to end with, as far as how does the 2025 legislation address issues like unlicensed real estate activity and consumer protections?
Okay, so I want to start, it's a long little answer here, but one of the bills that I think is our biggest win relates to deregulation, right? In the middle of the session, an amendment relating to deregulation was offered in a committee. It passed through 2 different committees. The 3rd committee, it went to the floor. The House put it on the Senate President's priority bill and sent it over to the Senate. And what this would have done was repeal FREC, repeal FREAB, repeal continuing education, repeal post-licensure education.
Yeah.
That's scary.
That is scary.
Right? Not just for the public, for our members, the value of the license, and the public. Like, who's going to be left to protect the public?
Right.
Right? And so we had been working with the Senate quite a bit because we realized the battlefield was shifting from the House to the Senate.
Yeah.
And, there were assurances that this was not going to pass the Senate. But when it comes up on the floor of the Senate and 40 senators have to push a red or a green button, okay, your heart stops, right? Because you just don't know, are they really going to do it?
Yeah.
And they did it. They didn't do it. So that was just a tremendous win, I think, for licensees as well as the public. Going forward, here's the thing. I think we're going to see there was $500,000 in the budget this year to go after unlicensed activity, which we know how important that is. Our members are not afraid of competition.
Right.
But what they want is a level playing field.
Yep.
Right? And if no one's going after the bad actors, it creates an unlevel playing field, and it's hard to compete against those kind of people. Right? So we have another $500,000 to protect your license, really. And then in terms of consumer protection, there was a flood disclosure bill that passed last year, and it was expanded this year to include not just property owners but tenants as well. And so I think there's many states out there with a flood disclosure, and some are on their second version. Florida, this was our first effort at it, and we worked both with the House and the Senate. It was a bipartisan bill, and we had a large part in drafting that bill. It's very straightforward and puts out some really important information that allows renters and buyers to make informed decisions, right? And I think that's incredibly important, not only for the buyer and the renter, but also for the owner and the landlord, and the licensee, because you don't want to be involved in, the post-closing litigation.
Right.
We're always trying to close that window. Yeah. And I think this bill does that to a great respect.
Great. Yeah. Well, Trey, thanks so much for joining us live. And for you watching, you can get a full report of the legislative session on floridarealtors.org. And stay tuned for Enes Hedges Garcia, who will talk about hyperlocal marketing at 2 o'clock.